Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Mike, host of the free iTunes podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. But that's not why I'm here today. This is another Saving Savvy episode, this time talking about are camera reviews and ads biased? And of course, this is an editorial and my personal opinion, but I would say many of them are. And I kind of came to that realization when I took this camera to a Christmas party. This is the Pentax MX1. Now, I will tell you that I really have no gain by making these videos. I don't make any money off of them, and no one's sending me free camera gear or anything. And I never actually reviewed this camera. And the reason I didn't, it was because I felt that its high ISO performance wasn't that great, and I just wasn't that interested in it. And not that great compared to other similar cameras, although it is a really awesomely built camera. But I took it to this Christmas party, and actually it performed very admirably in a little bit better light, and I was quite impressed by it. So my bias changed a bit, although I still think the high ISO performance, which is important to me, could be better. So how do we see bias in the media when it comes to cameras? Well, first of all, there's the obvious bias of an ad, whether it's on TV or a web page or YouTube, where the manufacturer is trying to put its best foot forward. So they might tell you that a camera takes awesome pictures, but they might not say that it has terrible battery life, for instance. Then there's covert ads, and usually these are done by camera stores. And thankfully, often they're identified not as a review, but maybe as a quick look or something like that. And they'll usually present a camera and they'll present mostly positive points with one or two kind of soft negative points. Still makes you want to buy the camera. Then beyond that, you have the kind of the experts that come in and have a chat or do a video or something where they'll say, I have changed to XYZ camera because I think it's just really awesome, and this is the reason why, and on and on and on. And it's like, gee, this sounds like an ad, but it's not really marked as such. Or you'll have the expert photographer sitting in a easy chair with some other interviewer, and they're just going on and on about XYZ camera, and thinking, well, why are they doing that? Why are they, well, it's probably an ad. That's my guess. So you have these kind of obvious ads. Then you have what I call push ads. So the camera industry is changing. People need to buy cameras. So there's always a push to buy something better. And as prices of certain types of cameras have dropped, there's a push to buy those types. So for years now, we've been hearing you have to shoot in RAW, which means you need to have a camera that shoots in RAW. Now you don't have to shoot in RAW. I mean, it's fine if you do. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you don't have to. Or you need a full-size sensor because it has better dynamic range and better low light performance. Absolutely true. But do you really need that? Well, that's the push, right? So you get these pushes that the industry kind of pushes you in a direction. You have to have 1/8,000th of a second shutter speed because someday you might need that. Maybe not, but there's that push. So you sometimes see spin, and spin is when one person gives a negative review, you see kind of a counter review. So a number of years ago, I saw or read a blog from a guy that said the D3000 was the worst Nikon ever made. And this was because he was pretty disappointed because it did not compare to the previous model that he liked quite a bit. He's right to that opinion. But shortly thereafter, another person who did reviews that I respected quite a bit from his YouTube videos said that he was going to recommend to all of his students to get D3000s because they were so easy to use and intuitive. It was kind of a counter to that other ad. We see that now with the 7D Mark II. So DxOMark said the sensor was really not as good as it could be. It really hadn't advanced that much. So then we started to see all these ads that would say, or these reviewers that would say things like, "Wow, isn't it awesome? It has a crop sensor, and that means that you can get up close with a shorter lens." And so now I guess the crop sensors are good now. They were bad before, now they're good, and we start to see that sort of stuff happening. Now, all of this is true. It's all how you spin the data, though, right? It's not, crop sensors do give you a apparent longer focal length for a given lens. And that can be to your advantage. Absolutely. But it was bad before. Now it's good. So you have to just kind of be aware and read between the lines. I think sometimes reviewers have a bias because they get something that's unfamiliar or unexpected. And so we really saw that with the Nikon N1 series and also the Pentax Q series. Two very nice camera lines, but they weren't what the reviewers expected, and they had pretty lukewarm reviews. Now you take a camera like the Sony RX100, which is basically also a 1-inch sensor camera like the Nikon 1 series, except the lens was glued onto it, right? So now it's a compact camera, and people are going, unbelievably great camera, the best compact camera ever made. How different is that from the N1? It is different, of course, but here again, perception is different. All three of those cameras were very good cameras, in my opinion. The Sony absolutely was a breakthrough camera, but all three of those were good cameras. So you might see a bias with a person who's used to a particular kind of camera. Maybe they like the controls a certain way. Maybe one brand has a little tiny feature that they have gotten used to that the other camera doesn't have. Perhaps you might see something where a person who's a professional reviewer that's used to having all the controls on the camera, now they're testing out a simpler camera that doesn't have all the controls right out there in the screens and everything, and they might have a bias against their camera even though it's a perfectly fine camera. So what am I saying with all of this? Should we completely ignore all these ads and all these reviews and things? Of course not. They offer valuable information, but you have to take them for what they are, and you have to make your own decision. The good news is that all these cameras are so good that it's hard to make a bad decision. And I would venture to say that if I took just any random DSLR or mirrorless camera from a store like Best Buy or Target and gave it to a professional photographer and said, buy whatever lenses you want and whatever flashes you want, that professional would be able to do virtually almost any kind of work and produce professional results. That's how good all these cameras are right now. Think about even going back 5 or 6 years, how sensor technology has improved during that time. Go back 10 years, it's unbelievable, right? Go back to the film days where it wasn't, I'm going to take 20 shots and get the right time where he's kicking the ball or something. They took 1 shot or 2 shots. They couldn't take 20 shots in a row unless they had some kind of camera that I'm not aware of. They didn't have the ability to automatically adjust their ISO or to make all sorts of other changes in the way that the camera acted. They were stuck with what they had, and they did an awesome job. So skill is a big part of photography, and a camera can give you a little bit of automatic legs up, but it's certainly not going to take the place of skill. That's why I could buy a high-end DSLR. That's not going to make me a newspaper level sports photographer, right? It's going to be practice and talent and probably a lot more practice. So with that, I would like to say be aware, be wise. Don't stop watching these reviews because I think they offer good information. I'm not just talking about mine, I'm talking about all of them. Don't stop watching the ads, but just watch them carefully. And of course, this is my opinion, and you might have a different opinion, so you could write it below if you choose to. And if you get some time, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and please listen to my free podcast, Psychiatric Secrets Revealed with Dr. Mike. It's on iTunes. Take care, everyone.